downtrodden. "I want to tell you something about my past," he began. "I was born and raised not on Munalist, but on a world called Magito, and not to my father's primary wife, but to a second wife, what Munes call a codicil partner. So I was a young adult before my father was finally returned to Munalist, and I had my first taste of the planet that gave rise to my species. Owing to Munalist's regulations governing population growth, no Mune of less influence than my father would have been allowed to import a non-indigenous offspring, let alone a half-clan. And yet the members of my father's family regarded me as a trespasser, lacking proper legality and the social aplomb that comes to those born and raised on Munalist. For if there is anything the Mune detest more than wasteful spending, it is nonconformity, and I had it in abundance. They were model citizens, my fair brothers and sisters, insular, self-important, identical in their thinking, thrifty to a fault, given to gossip, and it angered me deeply to have been accepted by the galaxy's downtrodden, only to be rejected by this hive of self-serving parochial beings. Much to their further displeasure, they were forced to accept that I was a fully bonded clan member, entitled to the same share of my father's vast wealth as the rest of them. But as is the case with all members of the elite clans, I had to prove myself worthy of the status by preparing successful financial forecasts and allowing myself to be judged by the ruling elect. I passed my tests and trials, but soon after, my father took ill. On his deathbed, I sought his advice concerning my predicament, and he told me that I should do whatever I needed to do, as my very survival was in jeopardy. He said that lesser minds needed guidance and punishment on occasion, and that I shouldn't hesitate to use whatever means necessary to protect my interests, that I owed as much to myself, my species, to life itself. Plagueis paused. The cause of his premature death was determined to be a rare genetic abnormality that affected the tertiary heart, and one that all of my siblings had inherited, but I, having been born to a different mother, had not. Panicked by the thought of early death, my siblings launched a galactic search for the finest geneticists credits could procure, and ultimately one surfaced, claiming knowledge of a curative procedure. And so they underwent treatment, each and every one of them, my clan mother included, in full confidence that they had dodged the family curse, and could soon return to their primary passion, which was to have me legally ostracized from the family. He looked hard at Palpatine. Little did they realize that I had hired the geneticist, and that the treatments he provided were as phony as his credentials. And so, in due course, they began to grow ill and die, each of them, as I watched from afar, gloating, even entertaining myself by feigning sadness at their funerals and indifference at the allocation rituals that transferred portions of their accumulated riches to me. Eventually, I outlived all of them and inherited everything. His amalgam of fact and fiction concluded, Plagueis stood tall and folded his thin arms across his chest. In turn, Palpatine trained his gaze on the gazebo's wooden floor. Plagueis detected the quiet whir of 114D's photoreceptors focusing on the youth. "You think me a monster," he said when a long moment of silence had elapsed. Palpatine raised his head and said, "You underestimate me, Magister."